This USA Today Gallup poll gives Claire McCaskill a 3-point lead. Do you think she is benefiting all the way out here in Missouri from the Mark Foley scandal just because she's a Democrat?
Well, I think it's a dead heat, in effect. There's polls that show one of the candidates up and the other candidate down. But if you look at it in its totality, it appears to be pretty close to a dead heat. But yes, I think that Democratic candidates all across the country will get a different look, a fresh look, as voters step back and look at Republican control of Congress. Now, we're still a month away from an election. Will the Foley scandal be the dominant issue a month from now? I doubt it. I think Iraq is much more of an issue that hovers over this election, and that will continue, I think, for the next 4 weeks.
And what about the issue of Iraq? The MSNBC poll out here that they just did said health care was the top issue among voters. Now, the Republican governor out here just cut Medicaid a couple years ago by thousands, and some people say that may have an effect. But of all the states that were polled, Missouri was the only one that put health care over Iraq. Do you think that's significant?
Well, I think health care is an important issue, and the candidates have articulated their positions on that. I've studied very hard the positions put forth by the two campaigns. But in terms of anxiety within the electorate, health care clearly the most important domestic issue, but I go back to Iraq in terms of a foreign issue because it is something that does resonate and does connect. And I see that in every survey I see, whether it's Missouri or all across the United States.
You know, compared to Rick Santorum or George Allen out in Virginia and Mike DeWine in Ohio, Talent's been called the least vulnerable of all the GOP incumbents. Why is that?
Well, I think that his personality is such that he doesn't have some of the hard edges of some of the other candidates that you may have mentioned. Also, there are some Democrats who've talked about working with him on legislative programs. Also, Missouri is a state that has tilted towards Talent and his other elective runs. But this is a midterm election in the second term of a president, a Republican president. And the president's favorable ratings are down around 40%. And so there is some difficulties for Republican candidates all across the landscape. The Mason-Dixon polls last week surveyed 10 key battleground Senate seats, and the Democrats were either tied or ahead in all 10. So clearly there's something going on within the electorate, which is costing even a Republican like Jim Talent some points.
President Bush won this state by 7 points just 2 years ago. Is Missouri still a red state? Can it really turn blue in just 2 years?
That's a very good question, and we'll know in 30 days. But clearly, based on some of the polling data we're seeing, there are some apprehensions about the president, about Iraq, about health care. Whether that will transfer into replacing a Republican incumbent senator is still a very volatile question. And that's why I think the race is so close. And we're seeing this not only in Missouri, but in states like Tennessee and Ohio, Montana, places where they felt that the Republican candidate was such that it would not be a difficult reelection. That's proven to be incorrect.
In studying Ms. McCaskill, what do you think her biggest challenge is in winning this race?
Well, any challenger, I think, not only has the opportunity to say it's time for a change, but then they have to step forward and say, and this is why, and this is who I am. And I think that she has to tell the voters exactly who she is and what they could expect from her in being a United States Senator. It's a two-step process. It's not enough simply to say throw the other guy out. The interesting thing about the Missouri Senate race is the extraordinary amount of coverage that's being given to it by the Missouri media. And I think that's a real plus for you and for others in our profession. It's a race that has received a very close watch, and I think the viewers and the voters are going to have a very clear sense of the differences between these candidates and then make up their minds as to who they want to represent them in the U.S. Senate.
You know, we have 3 ballot initiatives on the ballot here in November: stem cell research, a minimum wage hike, and a tobacco tax. How do you think those issues will play and affect the Senate race?
Well, I'm aware of those because I've been obviously studying up on the race, and I know of the positions the candidates are staking out. It's been quite interesting on the stem cell, seeing how that plays out, particularly with Senator Talent. He had, having withdrawn his name from a congressional bill here and then coming out against the state initiative. I know that there will be a lot of religious conservatives who will line up and support him in his opposition to that measure, but the polling I've seen indicates it is a fairly popular one. I see that Claire McCaskill brought in Michael J. Fox to campaign for her, so I think stem cell has emerged as a real issue in the Missouri Senate race, and that's not the case all around the country.
There's a lot of talk about that conservative base nationally, and Springfield has a very conservative area, and a very strong evangelical area. Is there really any evidence that evangelicals and conservatives will stay home to punish a senator like Jim Talent this November?
We don't know. Although the Bush White House will say that in 2000 they believe that several million evangelical Christians stayed home after the reports of President Bush's DWI were reported back when he was before he was in elective office. So it's a concern. There's no doubt it's a very serious concern of the Republicans I talked to in the White House and in Congress. Will evangelical Christians be disgusted by what happened on Capitol Hill with Congressman Foley and the Pages, and the perception that some in the Republican leadership were more worried about political control of a seat than they were about a young 16 or 17-year-old boy? I can't get in the minds of the voters. It's been covered extensively, and I think the voters will have to make up their mind as to whether that motivates them to vote or stay home.
Mr. Russert, well, thank you so much for doing this for you, and we're going to come out and watch the debate with you on Sunday, so we'll see you then.
I look forward to it. Thanks.